Do you have a gallbladder? Well, I'm going to talk about the gallbladder. Whether you have a gallbladder or not, the gallbladder stores bile. If you don't have a gallbladder, you still have bile because bile is produced by the liver. So let's talk about this wonderful organ that actually works with the liver. And at the New School of Nutritional Medicine, we call it the dynamic duo, the liver and the gallbladder. Imagine you've got this organ that stores something called bile. So you want to ask, what does bile do? So bile is actually used as a route to clear out toxins from the body. So first of all, that's one important function of the bile. It gets rid of toxins. It carries them out. It transports them out. It's like a carrier, okay, like a bus or something carrying passengers. Toxic passengers, may I add. And then bile, as we're taught at school, as we taught at university, even medical students are still taught this, is very important for the emulsification of fats. It's a bit of a mouthful. It means bile acts like a detergent. It breaks down the fats. Therefore, that way your body can then absorb fats, including your fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D. So what's the health of your bile? Have you been taking vitamin D and it doesn't go up? Do you eat vitamin D in your diet, fatty foods, and it's not still increasing? Might be bile. Anyway, that's one point. The other aspect is bile is really important in thyroid health. So if you're watching this video and you don't have a gallbladder, was that gallbladder removed before you were diagnosed with hypothyroidism or after? Generally, in women who get gallstones, there tends to be also a thyroid issue, usually an underactive thyroid. One symptom that you might want to be aware of that can increase your risk of gallstones, but also increase the risk of having a perimenopause that is a bit like a roller coaster ride and you don't know whether you're going up or down and you want to get off it, but you can't. If you've had cholestasis during pregnancy. So if you've been pregnant and you're a woman watching this, cholestasis during pregnancy can indicate a high chance of getting gallstones later on in your life, especially during your perimenopause. It's just an indicator. I'm not saying you'll get gallstones, but it's an indicator because why would you? So cholestasis is that itchy skin during pregnancy, and there's nothing but you get itchy palms, itchy skin. That makes me want to itch now. That's an possible indication of future gallstones in your body. What that can also do is actually increase estrogen dominance. Okay, so there's a lot to cover here, although the gallbladder is taught as an organ that's important in the emulsification of fats, but yet the gallbladder has a lot of other functions because it stores bile. It doesn't make bile, it stores bile, and that bile has all these amazing properties. Now, bile is also antimicrobial. So if you have this gallbladder in your body, when the fat comes through your system, you've had some fat in your food, it'll tell the gallbladder to literally contract. Okay, I'm not going to squeeze it too tight in case I burst it. That gallbladder contracts and out comes the bile and it goes into the intestine where it does all its wonderful magic with the digestion and assimilation of food, especially fats. But once it's in there, in the intestine, it's going to go down to where the big party happens, where the microbiome is. Now, if you do not have enough bile, or gunky bile, that's a very scientific term, if you've got gunky bile or not enough bile, then you're not going to have strong enough antimicrobial activity. So when that bile reaches the microbiome, and it's like the microbiome's thinking, oh, not much antis today or antimicrobials, the opportunistic bacteria and the pathogenic bacteria can start to overgrow. They're like, great, we have nobody to keep an eye on us, we can overgrow. And then you can get what we call dysbiosis. That dysbiosis can lead to things like insulin resistance, autoimmune conditions, skin conditions. The list is endless, okay? And you might think, whoa, actually, what does that mean? Testing your microbiome, it's a nonsense because it's further down. You want to go up. Remember, you want to check, are you chewing your food? What's your nervous system like? Is it in a parasympathetic state of mind? Or is it in fight, flight, freeze, fawn? When it comes down, what's the stomach acid like? Is it acidic enough? Do you have enough? Do you make enough? And then also, once you've gone to your gallbladder that's contracted to release the bile, we also want to ask the question, is that bile clean? Is it healthy? Because that bile comes from the liver. Now imagine you've got the gallbladder here, the liver's up here, and it connects to the bile with a duct. And what happens is in the liver, you've got what we call the biliary tree. And that biliary tree is where the bile comes through in these various ducts. They're like the branches on the tree. And then they'll come, and then that bile will come through those ducts and then get stored in the gallbladder. Now, if that bile is gunky, not a scientific term, but it might give you a visual of gunky bile, then what can happen, gallstones don't only occur in the gallbladder, because the gallbladder just concentrates it and holds the bile until the body says, okay, fat's coming down, release your content. And the gallbladder contracts because of the fat, releases the bile. But if there's no gallbladder, that bile from the liver, from these ducts, is just dripping slowly into the small intestine, so you don't get that concentrated whoosh dollop of bile. If you don't get that dollop of bile, whoosh whoosh dollop of bile, you can have issues with thyroid, you can have issues, as I've mentioned, autoimmune conditions, etc. So we want to look after our liver and we want to look after our bile health. Also, done a post today somewhere on gout, liver health, fatty liver. So all that is, and what bile is used for, it carries toxins into the intestine, where then it goes and joins, and all the poop is made, and it's excreted, the toxins excreted, but the bile is like a bus, but the bus then comes back, because bile is incredibly important to make, and the body doesn't like spending extra money if it doesn't have to. So what it'll do, it'll reabsorb some of the ingredients of what it makes the bile with to actually just use that again. Body's amazing, right? I'm always amazed, even when I'm repeating this now to myself, thinking it's absolutely amazing. So what you want to do is support your bile. Make sure you have healthy bile. Make sure you have a gallbladder. If you don't have a gallbladder, we have got a course at the New School of Nutritional Medicine on our website. We've got several courses, and if you pop down below, you'll see a code, and we're offering a code for a short while, so you can get a discount. And go and clean out your bile ducts, clean out your bile, and get healthy functioning liver and gallbladder. But remember, the gallbladder only stores the bile, and that's why when people have gallstones, that the gallbladder is removed, because that's where the most pain occurs. But there are people who've had their gallbladder removed and they still experience the same pain, but their pain isn't as excruciating, but it's still there. Why? Because that bile is gunky, and it's also blocked up those little A roads, those small roads that are joining the motorway. So if those small roads that join the motorway, say if there's traffic all blocking up those little small side roads that are joining the motorway, if they're also blocked up, and then you remove the gallbladder, so like the main toxic bus or coach, for example, you still got issues in these bile ducts. So when you do, for example, a liver gallbladder flush, and one that is actually more therapeutic than just, okay, drink olive oil, have some apple juice, and that's it. That's a bit intense. If you prepare and make sure that the bile is healthy and smooth, and then you soften the stones before you do the flush, it's so much more better. I'll never forget my very first, and she wasn't even a client, she was actually a student at one of the schools that I taught at over 20 years ago. And I was teaching the liver gallbladder flush and going through the health of the bile and what it means to have a healthy gallbladder and a healthy bile and how they work together. And we call them the dynamic duo. And she used to have horrendous pains during her when she used to kind of just before she had her period. So basically during ovulation and just a few days before her period and the day of her period, where she used to have to take time off work. And she did 2 liver gallbladder flushes, and that was it. It changed her health, changed her hormonal health. The thing is, bile is incredibly important for removing toxins. It's not just about emulsification of fats. It just that, that tape has got to be changed. It's old, it's outdated, it's not what bile is about. And when you have your gallbladder removed, you're no longer getting that huge dollop being squeezed into the intestine, and that can create a lot of other health issues. So if you're planning on having your gallbladder removed and you're just waiting for a date, a surgery date that is, hopefully not a date as in a date, Tinder and all that, then I would highly suggest jumping onto the New School website, having a look at the liver gallbladder flush. We've also got a lecture on it as well, so you can watch that as well, so you can properly understand it and what that goes through, this particular lecture, and the actual flush that you can purchase, the details of the flush, is we first take you through softening any stones and clearing up the sludge first. Because if you just do that flush thing that contracts the gallbladder, you're only still focusing on the gallbladder. You're not focusing on that biliary tree, all those roads that are joining the motorway, okay? And then when you do that, you're literally sweeping. It's like sweeping the leaves off the motorway. So you're clearing the motorway, and once you're ready to do the flush, it's clear. If you have any questions regarding the flush, once you've purchased it and you're very keen to do it, you can book in with one of the team, because the team can offer you a half-an-hour session to go through it with you. But I would highly suggest checking your liver enzymes too. Sometimes they can be within normal range and you can still have issues with your liver and gallbladder. The other symptom is gout. If you're a man and you're listening to this video, if you've got gout, or if you've got fatty liver, it's another great course and cleanse that you can do. Okay? So I hope this has been helpful and it's given a bit of a new insight into the gallbladder and a yellow balloon.